Well, it's definitely in the background, in the engine of it all. I think we will continuously develop on you can say the simple queries. How can we solve that across the platform? But where our efforts go is definitely in the engine of Dixa, because that's where we feel we can give managers, admins, executive teams the most benefit.
Welcome to the Global Xperience. We explore the intersection of transformation and innovation with customer service and collections, and the evolving world of customer and employee experience. Join keynote speakers, industry mavericks, CX and debt collections experts and influencers as we uncover what's shaping the future. Let's get into it. Sawubona, welcome, and hello again to our listeners. I'm your host, Bryce Cressy, and we are back on the Global Xperience, this time with Mikkel Andreassen, Director of Solutions and CX Advisory at Dixa, and one of the newest partners joining Newton's Innovation Lab. Today, we'll be unpacking what modern CX really looks like when AI, omnichannel engagement, and human connection all have to work together at scale. Mikkel, how are you doing?
I am doing extremely well. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Brilliant. Start us off, tell us a little bit about yourself, tell us a little bit about Dixa, and we can get into it.
Of course. Why don't we start with myself, then I can think of a few words on Dixa. I've been working in customer service for 14, 15 years or so. The last 7 has been with Dixa, but otherwise I've been working as an agent, as an admin, ending up running a customer service team at a global e-commerce business before I you can say jump the fence and switch to a software provider. In this case, this was Dixa. And for those who don't know, Dixa is, at least we label ourselves as a agentic CS platform, specifically or targeted for e-commerce brands. I think that's the short and sweet story. I'm sure we'll get into more, but that's Dixa in its essence, if you will.
Okay, and tell me about the difference between like you've experienced when jumping the fence to come to technology versus being head of customer service elsewhere.
Well, you tend to see things through a different lens. I got to know Dixa as I was actually utilizing a different platform, and we switched to Dixa. So doing that, you can say onboarding. There was a lot of why doesn't this work? Why doesn't that work? Please help me out. And when you get to the other side of the fence, you kind of understand why some software isn't always working as you want to. So that's one thing. And then I think the biggest piece for me has been so many different perspectives or approaches different companies have to service, even though they are within the same industry. And it really opens your eyes to what good looks like, or what good can look like in many different variations, right? What has been the same is the amount of, I almost want to say pressure, but the amount of work we put on the agents on the front lines, that was clear back then, and that is still clear now. But otherwise, you just tend to have a broader perspective on things, I'd say.
I think that's such an interesting perspective, because I think we see that a lot with some of the clients that we engage with, that if they've led BPOs and contact centers before, and then they go to the other side, which is representing a brand and then outsourcing to BPOs and contact centers, you see them with a lot more with a different perspective on how BPOs are run and how call centers are run. And I'm sure it's exactly the same thing when you are working with a company that is creating technology to improve customer experience versus being just the end users of it. And if you've had both of those experiences, you kind of would look at it through a different lens, right?
Yeah, 100%. I actually also worked at a BPO in the past. And I think what really stands out is once you're sitting in customer service and your operation, you actually don't think too much necessarily about the software you use. So of course, when you go to the other side, that's all you think about is how you can improve that kind of software you work for. But ideally, it's just something that's there. It's something you use just like any of us uses some kind of software every day, where I'm sure anybody will have an input to an improvement to the daily work you have. That's just natural.
Yeah. And Dixa from my understanding, from our partnership to date, you guys do things slightly differently to the rest. Maybe talk to the differences in traditional CCaaS versus what Dixa are bringing to the table, and maybe even the pros and cons of that.
Yeah, good question. Let us go a little bit back to what started at Dixa. I joined Dixa back in 19, so fairly new company back then. And one of the things Dixa is built on is essentially the end user, so not our customers, but our customers at its core. So essentially the end users of an e-commerce, the one us who's buying shoes. And Dixa is sort of built around that. With conversations in mind. And we used to have the very first CPO, at least I encountered at Dixa, used to have this phrase that was called, would you do that to a friend? And it was very much related to traditional contact center services who always had this, I'm sure we've all seen a tagline that says, please reply above this line, which is very related to ticketing. And he had this whole notion, he wanted to break with that. He wanted to have what would feel like a natural conversation with a customer, just as he would have with a friend or a family member. So that's probably how I will picture the main difference of ideology, of how we approach how you should run customer service, or how agents or customers should essentially feel about customer service. In essence, Dixa is sort of catered around the customer, the conversations, more so than the volumes or the tickets that we do. That's probably the biggest difference. I know things have changed, and you could founders of Dixa would probably argue that they have made the switch in the industry to make it more conversational across. But you still see the fundamental and the architectural change or difference between, I want to say, software like Dixa and software like the legacy softwares.
Yeah, so from a customer perspective, I know that if I deal with a company that are using tickets, I have my reference code, I've got my ticket number. So if ever I need assistance on that ticket, I've got some reference, I've got some structure around it. What changes when moving away from ticketing to conversations?
You can say you still have the structure. It's just hidden behind a curtain, if you will. So a conversation number or a conversation ID is still attached to it. I think what changes mainly is we put the user in the front for the agents, so that the context and the admins. So everything they do with, you can say, an email or phone number, an ID of a user in mind, and not necessarily the ticket ID, but the user ID in mind. So that is like a core shift in how platforms are built. Because if you take Dixa versus famous named platforms who uses tickets, they are built based off the ticket ID, and we are built based off the user ID, essentially. So it's more an architectural and an orchestrated thing that you'll see, but it allows at least us to let the agent focus on the user, so they can see everything that has happened. We also say we are multi-channel, omnichannel. There are many beautiful names for what we do, but all channels in one, with context of orders and knowledge, etc., associated to the user, less so than the ID. I think both platforms essentially have made up so that ticketing tools also can do this, and we still have the ID of the conversation. We just develop and go about it in different ways.
That's so interesting, because I'd never actually considered ticketing and that ticketing approach to be, it's based on the problem, not based on the person like phoning in,
Yes.
which has its pros in that it can be very specific to that problem. But the cons would be you're not seeing the full customer picture. You're only looking at that one specific problem. But what about the rest of the relationship that you've had with that customer? And I guess it actually might even go into something that I've been reading up on around customer friendship and the relationship that we have, or that I guess the agents have with customers. And you guys are quite pro on the customer friendship, like terminology, right? Methodology.
Yes. You can. It's essentially the essence of why we're even here, and still is the essence of many things that we do, no matter which job you have at Dixa. If you look at Dixa, and if you've seen Dixa, you just take a look at it, you can probably see a lot of this is orchestrated around customer friendship. essentially. How can we make Dixa the place to build relationships? And it was back to my point, like the old coin we had, like saying, would I do this to a friend? So we always work off the notion. Let me give you an example. Let's say my wife reaches out to me today. She's probably going to text me. She can message me on Facebook. She might even send a WhatsApp or a Snapchat or whatever she can think of. Around the same question, by the way. Right? So it's more to collect that. I don't have to remember what we're talking about because it's my wife or one of my closest friends, if you will. But if I scale that 10x, 100x, then I can't remember these things. Right? So that has been our entire notion, is how can we make a customer service representative a friend or a family member, or have them be as knowledgeable about their closest friends as to a customer. And that is where orchestrating everything around the customer becomes so important for us. Because in order for us to help companies do that at scale, we need to provide a lot of information in a slick way, in an easy way, for the agents to actually make decisions of this. Grab the phone and say, hey, Bryce, are you reaching out because of what you wrote us last week? And have that what you wrote us last week as a right in front of you. That's how we see it, as we help our customers, so our brands, build long-lasting relationships. So we firmly believe that is more a customer service belief, that a good relationship creates loyalty. And loyalty is, at the end of the day, good business.
And what would you say is the most important information an agent using Dixa's platform needs to have in order to make the customer feel like a friend? Like, what information are they needing?
That is such a good question. If you only give me one thing, because usually it's few parameters. I usually say 8 out of every customer I speak to, 8 out of 10 times the agents need at least 3 things. Channel context, so context of how have the person reached out, the example I just gave before. Usually also some relation to what has this customer purchased. There's not always a purchase involved, so it could also be what is their preferred product they're asking, but usually it's a purchase. And finally, how can we cater some knowledge to the agent, whether it's a tenured agent or somebody who started yesterday, to provide high quality of a solution. So I mentioned 3 components there. If I were to say one, I would probably go with the channels, because all data research will tell you that if we get asked to repeat ourselves of why we're reaching out, we are already below the CSAT we want to have as customer service. So I'd probably say that, but usually those are the 3 core components that we're looking at.
Yeah. I think the context of channels and past interactions that the customer has had, and almost that 360 view of the customer's relationship with the brand, is you can't overstate how important that actually is. Exactly as you said, the frustrations that I've had with brands have been where I get transferred from team to team to team, and then I have to re-explain my problem every single time. And sometimes it's on the scripting of the agent picking up the phone that they might already have information, but they are programmed to ask, how can I help you? What's your problem? Instead of, I've seen that based on your past conversations, this is your problem. Is that still the case? Am I correct? Instead of just asking them to repeat themselves. But then if you've got the technology, if you don't have the technology to enable that, and you're an agent seeing a customer come in for the first time, that's how you'll treat them, as a first-time customer. So that technology enablement there is critical.
Very much agree. And I think if you try to be an agent, and one thing is an email, but another thing is a chat or a Facebook or a WhatsApp or even a phone call, then you're on the spot, right? So anybody who has been an agent probably knows what we're talking about here, because it is information you need on the spot and a solution you need on the spot. So that whole, as you say, almost a canned response, but from a human, often leads to like just low satisfaction and distrust.
Customer retention versus customer acquisition. So the old adage is that it costs more to get a new customer in than it does to keep an existing customer. And your customer lifetime value is higher when you focus more on customer retention than you do on customer acquisition. What are your thoughts on that?
Bottom line, I would probably agree. What I also I 100% agree with that. That it is easier to keep a customer than to gain a new one, and cheaper, just better business. I think though, if you are in, at least the customers I speak to, if you are in e-com, then the reality is the allure of a new customer wins so much more than putting efforts into customer service to boost your retention, do more for loyalty, right? There's way more money being put into marketing to get a new customer than the retention. So I agree. I think most would agree. I just think the reality is quite different. I think the reality is we need more. We want new in. And I think part of that is because customer service teams historically has had a hard time proving if you spend $1 on customer service, what is that dollar giving me back? Historically, that's a cost. Whereas marketing will say, if you spend $1 in marketing, I'm going to give you 1.2 back. So they have actually proven the business journey, the ROI, way better than customer service. So I think we're still on early steps in customer service teams. We are trying to help our customers as best as we can to this because data has become so much better in customer service. But I think that's part of the challenge there for service teams and retention.
Yeah, it's actually changing the idea that customer service is a cost center and moving that idea away from it actually being a revenue center. I know some of the clients that we work with, they don't have sales campaigns, they have cross-sell, upsell campaigns through customer service. And I think it's a good avenue if you're solving the customer problem at hand, and if you can make them even happier by recommending something that will make their life a lot easier and complement their current service offering, then perfect. But I'm sure you are attending many conferences over the year, and I also see at a lot of conferences that everyone speaks about the revenue center, speaks about changing customer service to be focused more on revenue and rewarded more on revenue, and yet to see it in practice.
Very much agree. And I also, like this has probably been, for all of us, I'm talking about Dixa and all our dear friends in the market, we have probably been tuning this avenue because I think we all really want customer service to be able to prove this. But I think it's a too narrow look on things to sell like upsell campaigns, these type of things. We can help customers sell more if we know which kind of newsletter they read last week. For me, there's untapped potential in many other avenues to help customer service be the catalyzer for you can say a revenue stream or a retention stream. Let's call it that instead. Because what we've done with quite a few customers now is actually let's take some data regarding product feedback, damage to a product. I would love if your product could do this instead, like really down into the detail. We work with a lot of, I want to say, beauty fashion industry companies, and especially when there's actually a lot of customer engagement, customer feedback regarding their products. This has never been passed on to the company. So that's a data group where you can say if we captured this kind of stuff, this kind of data in the front lines, and we pass that to our product teams, to our executive strategy teams, and they can say, if we make these changes, not all of them necessarily, because there's a lot of suggestions, that actually has an impact on retention. So that's a different stream, and that is more so looking at what kind of data does the people who speak to our clients every day capture. But that's a lot of data. You need a system that can capture all of that, pass it on in ways that is digestible, right? But that is that's why I say the upsell path is a bit too narrow for me. You need to expand your vision on how you can utilize customer service there. Then it's definitely an avenue I would still recommend people to pursue.
You just reminded me that one of our most successful engagements with one of our customers has been through their chief marketing officer, because you hit the nail on the head. Like, we get so much data in the front line through voice of customer, through all the amazing analytics and AI tools we have of call recordings of 10 to 100,000 hours a month. There are diamonds in those conversations that aren't being used, and the customers that employ their chief marketing officer to make it responsibility to engage with the frontline and engage in that data to see what customers are actually saying, instead of just running surveys, but actually listening to the calls or looking at the data that's been analyzed from the calls. There's so much that they can do instead of putting an AI chatbot in to deflect tickets and deflect volume, sort out what the root cause is that leads to customers calling in to the call center or coming in through digital channels, through understanding what your customers are saying. So when it comes to Dixa and AI, you called right at the beginning of this podcast, you called Dixa an agentic platform. What makes it agentic?
Yeah, very good question. I think, first of all, one of our biggest assets is that we actually have a platform where humans work as well. Because, of course, we'll see more and more in the market where it's strictly AI and no platform behind it, or at least you need something like a Dixa or a Freshworks behind it. So that is still our starting point. I also think the reality is we have to help our brands, our users use agentic AI a lot more. So for us, it is more, how can we make a chatbot that is agentic and can make its own decision based on a source of knowledge that you put in. But that's sort of level one. How can we make an agentic admin that, based on our workflows the past week, come with suggestions, or even puts in the suggestions on its own to optimize workflows for specific topics, for instance. It could also be an insights agentic agent who helps you derive what you just talked about. Okay, last week, X amount of customers actually have this feedback on our product. Here's this to the product team. So it's all about optimizing processes. It could be an agentic knowledge base that helps you say, every time we get questions around claim and refunds, we get 5-star CSATs on these specific answers. So why don't we automatically update our knowledge base? So there's a lot of, for us, agentic feeds into the orchestration of the platform in many, many ways. Admin is one thing, agents one thing, insight, knowledge, automation. It's essentially more or less everywhere is where we want to be. The core is still humans need to be there for certain things, right? But we're not as, I want to say, blue-eyed or naive that we don't recognize that there's definitely a place for AI to handle a lot of volume now than even a year ago.
Yeah. And would you say that most of the AI attention within Dixa is being put into fielding the simple queries, or would it be the auto QA that you guys do, or would it be the insights and analytics, or the task engine in the background? Where would you say most of the focus is being put today?
Well, it's definitely in the background, in the engine of it all. I think we will continuously develop on you can say the simple queries. How can we solve that across the platform? But where our efforts go is definitely in the engine of Dixa. Because that's where we feel we can give managers, admins, executive teams the most benefit. There's, of course, also, I didn't mention that, but the co-pilot function, I don't think we're unique in that sense that every platform these days probably have a co-pilot function to help agents. But it's more so that whole agentic thought that the system automatically gets you better. And that is where we will put our efforts. There's no doubt about it.
And kind of shifting the narrative a little bit is, so we share a mutual customer in Charles Tyrwhitt. They, like anyone who knows them, and most people probably will know them, they pride themselves on their customer support and customer service. It's a premium luxury brand. You go to them if you want to be taken care of, and you want it to be a personalized experience. You want it to be boutique. You want to feel like $1 million when you leave one of their stores. Do you think the conversation approach that Dixa provides marries quite nicely with the personalized touch and the high touch that the customer service teams need to give CT customers?
Well, I'm biased, but I almost think it's a match made in heaven. I've visited Charles Tyrwhitt a few times. But what really stood out to me, even from the first time I was there, was how much they cared about the service. What was also clear for us, because I also more or less look at the processes, that they actually managed to provide an extreme high level of service despite not being able to have channel contextual. So providing, like Dixa was allowed to give them this context across channels, I just think elevated what they were already good at. So from that point of view, working with a team who cares so much about service, that's essentially also what we want to do. We want to elevate service, but being able to put them in a position where instead of spending X amount of time on finding information or switching back and forth from different systems, we could take that away and allow the agents to actually focus even more on the customer, give that boutique feeling to an even bigger extent. Because we could also feel that was what the agents wanted to give. Like that was important to them. What was the rating they got back? How did that customer leave? And Charles Tyrwhitt is also a company who both work with stores and online. So that whole omnichannel feeling for a customer essentially fitted quite well, at least for us, and I hope still also for them.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you there. Having gone into their New York store as well as their some of their flagship London stores, when you go in there, you feel like there's like a 360 view on you because of how attentive they are and how much care is provided. That going into the customer support channels that they provide, if you don't get that same 360 feeling, which the agents were still managed to give, as you say, despite the lack of channel context before, is really good. And I can only imagine that what customers feel like now. We work directly on the campaign and seen the CSAT scores go up quite significantly since Dixa was implemented. And I think that alone shows the quality that you can give when you provide agents with technology that enables them and doesn't. It's not providing friction layers or providing them or stopping them from providing a really good customer service. So I think, as you said, I think it's a match made in heaven. But I will move quickly on to the quick fire questions part of the Global Xperience. So for the listeners who listen regularly, they will know that the quick fire is I will shoot 5 questions at you. Some of them are a mixture between personal and business. I'm not asking you complex algebra or mathematics or asking you to recite pi to me. I'm just going to be asking simple questions and just getting a good feeling of who Mikkel is, the individual, as well as Dixa, the organization. So are you ready?
As ready as I can be. This has been what I dreaded the most, but let's go.
Okay. What is your favorite sport to watch?
NFL, American football.
Give me one word or one sentence that makes Dixa different from the rest.
Efficient.
What TV show are you watching at the moment?
Can I say 2? I'm watching 2 shows right now. So I'm actually watching the old Sherlock with Benedict Cumberbatch. Okay. I've never seen that before. Big fan. And then I'm always watching Modern Family, just for good vibe.
Okay. What is Dixa's competitive advantage?
Our attention to both our own customers and especially their end users, so that we stay in our lane, e-commerce.
Okay. And last one, who is your role model?
Oh my God, has to be someone nice. It's probably, and this is recorded, it's probably my big brother. For many, many reasons. But and it's a classic to say your dad or your brother or something, but probably my big brother. He has tenacity on a level I wish I had.
I love that. What's his name? Give him a shout out.
Rasmus.
So
I'll give a shout out to big brother.
I love that. Well, that wasn't so scary. You had some really good answers. Really appreciate it. So Modern Family, I'm assuming that's like your go-to binge when you're just looking for something to put on quickly.
Yeah, it's that or Seinfeld, and right now it's just Modern Family. that is running there. Yeah.
Okay. For me at the moment, it's always goes between Friends, The Office, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine. So one of those three sitcoms are my binges. But the Innovation Lab within Newton, right? Dixa is almost complete the onboarding into the Innovation Lab. For those who don't know what the Innovation Lab is, it is a testing ground for clients and prospects of Newton to come and test, play around with, and find new technologies and solutions for their business through the partnerships that Newton has, and have the ability to test them, pilot them, and POC them into safe environments and roll them out to the campaign at scale once they've finished the incubation within the Innovation Lab. Why do you feel that having Dixa in the Innovation Lab for clients to see something different is a good idea?
I usually say Dixa is a platform that needs to be experienced, touched, if you will. So that alone is a good idea. The reason why I say that is because a lot of things I've said about Dixa today, you could probably say about a lot of platforms. So I don't think it's until you sort of touch, feel, look, that you actually necessarily understand what I say, that it is different to work in Dixa. So I think that's the biggest thing, and just in general, I think the biggest thing is to touch the software, play around with the software that you use. And I also think, like, we're happy to put it out there. There's a lot of confidence in what the platform can do. So I think that's the biggest asset.
Okay, fantastic. Mikkel, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I think Dixa are doing some really cool stuff in the industry. We are thrilled to be able to have test and demo accounts to show our clients and our prospects. And we know that the partnership is only going to go strength to strength going forward. So appreciate having you on and look forward to version 2 sometime in the future.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Listening to the Global Xperience. Conversations that connect innovation, strategy, and transformation across customer service, collections, and experience. Stay inspired, stay customer-centric, and keep driving the change that matters. Until next time, this has been the Global Xperience.